Hi everyone, Ms. McCalmon here. We're doing the scratch art demo. So first I have all of my materials out, my scratch art paper, my ruler, and I have my image up there, my reference image that I showed you how to put the grid on in my other video. So I'm ready to get started. So first I'm just going to open up the scratch art paper. I'm going to use that paper clip later. I'm taking off the toothpicks now, but we're going to find out later in the video that they are pretty much useless for this project. So just measuring. This piece is 11 by 7. Your scratch art paper might be a different size, but no matter what, you should be able to have 12 united inches no matter what size your paper is. You should have your paper long enough so that you have 11 inches by 1 inch somewhere on your paper. But I chose the 8 by 4, so I don't really have to worry about that. So I'm measuring that out right now. Measuring a few different marks just to make sure my lines are straight. And just drawing that out. So as you can see, you can use pencil on the scratch art paper. Do not push very hard, but you'll be able to see it pretty well, which is a great feature. So I'm just cutting this out with scissors. I recommend testing your pencil mark before you actually draw on your final paper, just to see how hard you can push, just to get a feel for that. So there I'm writing, that first line that I drew was too hard, and you'll be able to tell that because you can actually feel it scratching into the paper. So here I am testing the toothpick, and they don't work very well. You have to push pretty hard to scratch away. So now I'm thinking paperclip, but the paperclip has this red plastic bit. So I'm using my scissors, and I'm just making a notch in that red plastic bit, and you can pull off the red lining. So now I just have the metal of the paperclip. You might have a regular paperclip at home or some other tools that might work better for this. I go through and I test some other things. There I am cutting off the other end. It's kind of like stripping a wire, an electrical wire, if anybody has any experience with that. So I found that the paperclip was the best tool, but you might have something else, like a push pin at home or something else you can use to scratch into it. But that's what these test sheets are for, to kind of experiment. I go through and I experiment with a lot of different things, but I ended up finding out that the paperclip was the most helpful. Really, the toothpicks do nothing. Sorry about that. And then I was kind of just thinking, oh, maybe a key. No, too blunt. I tried a nail and a screw. I was just kind of looking around my desk area to see if I had anything. So if you find that you have a tool that works better, let us know in class. And again, I'm leaning into the camera a little bit so you get to see my head. So I try a bunch of different things. In the demo that's on the assignment, you'll also see that they have a special stylus kind of thing to use for scratch art. I don't have one of those. We couldn't give them to you. But the paperclip works pretty well. So if you want to explore this more, and one of those styluses might come with a scratch art kit. But I'm using the paperclip. I found that that worked all right. So I'm just practicing different marks, and here is a close-up on my test sheet. You can see some crazy marks from the toothpick. So I'm just practicing my control, and on those sharper edges is where you're going to get the best scratching. And the direction of your scratching might change. How thick of lines you can get. So just experiment with those edges. See, that's a nice thick edge for some lighter areas. I recommend keeping your scrap sheet near you as you're working so you can test marks before you make them on your final project. and you'll see that you get kind of the little crummies from scratching away, and I just brush them away. If you want to use like a tissue or something for that, you can. Practice some curved lines, see what kind of lines you can get. There's no assignment for the test sheet, but it will probably be obvious if you have used one or not, just because it makes your marks a little bit better. Yeah, so I'm practicing some cross-hatching there. I chose a furry animal, so I'll need those little marks a lot. All right, so now I'm ready to go on to my final paper, and I am marking off my grid lines. So I have a grid of 4 by 2, so that's 2-inch squares. So I'm just measuring that off, and I can draw that right on. I'm using a really light hand because you can erase later, but as you've probably learned with drawing, the lighter your marks are, the easier it will be to erase later. So now I have a grid that looks very similar to what I have on my computer. So I can start to draw really lightly the shapes that I'm seeing. And because of the grid, I can really see where the corner of an eye is or the curve of the ear. I'm drawing that kind of branch piece. It'd be nice if I could show my reference image as I'm drawing this next to it, but I can't right now. So I'm just trying to make it as accurate as possible and follow along my grid lines and see. I'm also kind of drawing in what looks like funky organic shapes, but that's actually a marker for me to kind of show different areas of value. You might want to lightly outline the lightest areas, because remember, in scratch art, the marks you make are going to be your lightest values. So it is kind of a switch around from our other drawing projects. And it's really nice because you can erase. So I recommend spending a good amount of time making your drawing before you start scratching away, and just make sure that that's as accurate as can be before you start making your marks. I have to go in and erase the nose a little bit, but I did test it on my scratch sheet first to kind of see what kind of pressure I need to put on to erase. Yeah, so I just erased that bit. It's pretty easy. You can use your white eraser too. I use that at the end. Just test everything before you do it on your final, my recommendation. All right, so I think I'm ready to start scratching, and oh, I didn't really like the edge of that mark, so I bring out my scrap paper just to kind of make sure I'm using the right edge. And once I find that right edge, I kind of hold my paper clip there and keep it there the whole time so I don't adjust it or mess up. So I'm just kind of keeping that same edge. But if you want to take a break, I did take some breaks in the middle of this drawing. You can always test your scratch paper again until you get to an edge of your paper clip that you like to use. And then I recommend by just starting with some of the highlight areas and lightly marking those in. I know that middle section between the eyes is really light, so I'm kind of outlining there. It takes a minute to kind of think backwards and think about creating your highlights rather than creating your shadows. And really think about the direction that you're making your marks. Does that make sense for the fur or the pattern of your animal? Because you can get some really realistic effects with these marks, but they have to be going the correct direction. So I'm time-lapsing it a little bit. I don't show my entire drawing. And there are some clips as I'm adding more value. And just build up and add more marks. And there is my final. As you can see, I spent most of my time working on the value in the animal. I put some value and marks in the branch, but those are a little bit more contour lines than value. So you can do that too. Focus mainly on your animal and have fun with this. This took me about an hour to do. So good luck on your scratch art.